evening, everyone. We'll get started. The August 24th, 2026 City Council meeting. And Amanda, if you could take roll.
Mayor Roberts.
Here.
Councilmember Miller.
Here.
Councilmember Valento.
Here.
Councilmember Erickson.
Here.
Councilmember Larson.
Here.
And if you're able, please join us in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Our first item is presentations, and we have the...
Let's approve the agenda.
Oh, guess we got to approve the agenda. That'd be good. All right. I'm willing to entertain a motion to...
So move.
I'll second.
Motion a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We have our agenda. Now we'll go into presentations. The 2025 audit presentation, and Jackie Knowles will be presenting that. Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm Jackie Knowles with BerganKDV, going to be going over a summary of the audit results and also the city's operating results for 2025. The main purpose of our audit is to provide our independent auditor's report. Within this report, we state that management is responsible for the dollar amounts in the financial statements, and our responsibility as auditors is to provide an opinion on those financial statements based on the results of our test work. This year, we are providing an unmodified or a clean opinion. That's the best that we can offer and the same that the city has been receiving. What that does is it provides assurance that the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects, the position of the district as of December 31st, 2025, and all of the activity that occurred within the year. One additional report that we are required to issue is the report on Minnesota legal compliance. That is required by the Office of the State Auditor, and we did not have any compliance findings related to that. We did have one internal control finding, the lack of segregation of accounting duties, which I'm sure will sound familiar to most of you. It is a repeat finding, just with one person handling multiple steps in a transaction process. So we do want council and management to continue to be aware of that, but no specific recommendations related to changes at this time. So with that, we'll move into the general fund operating results for the year. And revenue was projected at about $13.2 million, and the council authorized expenditures at an equal amount for a break-even or a balanced budget for the year. Actual revenue came in at about $13.68 million. That is a positive or over budget variance of about $477,000, while expenditures came in at about $13.17 million, so about $34,000 under budget. And fund balance actually increased by about $536,000 as a result of 2025 activity. And we'll get into the details in a little bit here. So looking at that total fund balance for the year, you can see it's gone up overall over the last 5 years. In 2025, as I mentioned, up about $536,000 in total, and the majority of that falls to the unassigned category, which is available for spending on any purpose. That number of about $7.7 million is an important number because we look at it in accordance with the city's fund balance policy. So that number is equal to 52.6% of the budgeted fiscal year 2026 expenditures. And the city's policy outlines a goal of maintaining an unassigned fund balance of 50% of the subsequent year's budgeted expenditures. So coming in at 52.6%, you are in compliance with policy at the end of the year. Looking at revenues next, in total, revenues were up about 5.3% in 2025 compared to the previous year. That was primarily within the property tax source of revenue due to an increase in the amount levied in the general fund. Other revenues also reported a larger increase, and that was primarily due to an increase in interest earnings, including a positive change in the fair market value of the city's investment portfolio. Looking at the allocation of revenue sources over the last couple of years, very consistent. As revenues have increased, it has been consistent across the different sources of revenue in the general fund. And looking into a little bit further detail with those budget to actual results, as I noted earlier, revenues in total over budget about $477,000. That positive variance was across all sources except for property taxes due to conservative budgeting, specifically for investment income, certain state aids, and also building and development activity. Property taxes was under budget, and that was due to the full levy amount being budgeted, but of course actual revenue is impacted by delinquents and other adjustments. Looking at expenditures next, in total, expenditures up about 9.3% from 2024 to 2025. The city has seen inflationary increases over the last 5 years. A lot of that increase from 2024 to 2025 was related to salary and benefit increases. The largest increase being within the city's largest spending program, public safety. Due to those salary and benefit increases, also there were computer system upgrade costs, pass-through fire relief aid was up, and then also turnout gear purchases were some of the larger items within that category. Public works expenditures were up about $296,000. Again, salary and benefit increases. There were also inflationary increases across supplies, utilities, repairs and maintenance. General government expenditures were up about $244,000, and that was across professional services and salary and benefit increases. And then finally, economic development expenditures up about $174,000, and that was due to increased costs for temporary planning services during the staff shortages. Again, we have some pie charts just showing that spending allocation over the last couple of years, and similar to revenues, we see a similar allocation here across the 2 years. So as spending has increased, it has been spread evenly across the city's programs. And then looking at budget to actual results for expenditures. As noted earlier, in total, under budget, about $34,000. There were some larger variances within the general government program and the public safety program. In general government, expenditures under budget about $200,000, and that was due to lower full-time wages and benefits costs than budgeted due to staff turnover. Partially offsetting that, public safety was over budget about $124,000, and that was primarily due to professional service costs related to building inspection services during staff shortages. So with that, we'll look at the 2 enterprise funds of the city next. Starting off with water, operating income up about 5.7%, primarily due to rate increases, while operating expenses were up about 8.3%. And that was primarily related to increased depreciation expense taken on some completed capital projects. The water fund is reporting operating income of about $726,000 in 2025, including all of the depreciation expense. So that shows that this fund is building up future monies for capital replacement costs. And the sewer fund operating revenues were very consistent from 2024 to 2025, while operating expenses were up about 11.6%. That was also due to increased depreciation expense taken on newly completed projects, and also the sewer treatment costs were up. This fund reported operating income of about $268,000, including all of the depreciation expense. So this fund is also building up future funds for capital replacement costs. And then the last graph just takes a look at the city's tax capacity, levy, and rates over the last 5 years. The city's total tax capacity has gone up, primarily due to increasing property values. The city's tax levy has increased at a consistent dollar amount over the last 5 years. So this has resulted in a tax capacity rate that has varied between about 35.6% and 41.6% over the last 5 years. And that was my prepared presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions? I guess I just have one, and my staff might be able to help. So the economic development part being billed towards taking, I guess, using that account to pay for, the extra services of planners, or I'm assuming,
Yeah, I noted that as well. It isn't coded that way in our system, so I'm not sure how it kind of translates that, but the community development department is separate from the economic development department, where the community development department has been capturing the costs for temporary planning services.
But did that happen in 25 or 26?
We've had temporary planning services various times,
How's it been, what was it coded in 25? Was it under? community
always under community development, not economic development.
so that was a change then?
Yeah, I can't attest
Yeah.
to that. I know I'm coding them necessarily to
Yeah,
community
maybe,
development.
Jolene, if we
So
get
we can
some
definitely take a look.
follow-up on that at some point.
Yeah, Mayor and Mr. Mayor and Council, I will follow up on that and provide you some background on that.
Okay, all right, great. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you for coming tonight. It was very detailed, appreciate it. All right, we will, next item is open forum. This is an opportunity for anyone to come speak to the council on any city matter. Please limit your remarks to around 3 minutes and state your name and address for the record. We have Brian Gould here, but it looks like you are more on that cannabis. So do you want to speak now? There's time to speak at that agenda item, obviously.
I think that would be fine. Mr. Mayor, he is the applicant.
Okay.
So if council would like to inquire
Yeah,
of him during that.
we can wait till that agenda item comes up. Anyone else like to speak this evening? All right, seeing no one else, we will go into the consent agenda. Anyone willing to make a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda items 7A through 7G.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And we have our consent agenda passed. We will go right into regular agenda items. Public Works Facility Funding Options, and Bruce Kimmel from Ehlers. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Can you hear me okay? Is this on? Okay. I'm in the circle of weird acoustics here, but I'm glad to be back with you here. Bruce Kimmel with Ehlers. And this is following up on a few previous discussions that we've had regarding possible approaches to financing this planned or at least proposed public works facility, most recently on July 13th. And at that meeting, that was a really helpful and productive discussion. It seemed like it was the council's wishes to maintain the current level of street reconstruction funding from the franchise fee at roughly $1.1 million. That's what you'll be collecting this year from the franchise fees. And then also, you had indicated some interest in seeing what the impacts would be if you did a financing approach for the public works facility that was all property taxes, or all franchise fees, or all sewer and water or utility revenues, just to sort of level set what those all or nothing impacts might be. And then finally, you asked us to come back with another funding approach, just for purposes of discussion, a new baseline, if you will, and to see if we could get to a level of comfort to authorize staff to move forward with next steps in terms of planning and moving the ball along with this project. So I'll look forward to going through all this with you. Please stop me along the way if you have questions. Really want this to be a discussion, and we can certainly look in different directions based on your preferences. So this is really just a holdover slide from the past presentation, but I did want to note the current rate structure that you have in place for the franchise fees. You'll recall that last fall you authorized some fairly significant increases in the franchise fees for both natural gas and electric, and that based on those changes and the number of customers per category, you can see how that you're looking to generate about $400,000 on the natural gas side, about $700,000 on the electric side, for about $1.1 million. Might be a little bit more than that, but that should be in the ballpark. And all of that money, as you know, is going towards street reconstruction projects, and we would anticipate that would continue in the future as well. Then looking at 100% allocation, for lack of a better term, we took a look at that using a somewhat simplified bond scenario, and I've put the parameters here for your consideration. Again, the $35 million placeholder for the project cost, looking at a total bonding amount of about $35.5 million. That's probably a little bit high. Most likely we would be a little bit lower than that, but wanted to be fairly conservative for this purpose. We looked at a 25-year level repayment term and an average interest rate of about 4.5%. That rate is also high. In today's market, you would be closer to 4%. But again, we wanted to give you a little bit of a cushion, not knowing what will happen between now and then in terms of interest rates. Given all of those assumptions, you're looking at annual debt service of about $2.4 million per year. And so going from there, when we looked at putting this just on the property tax levy, you can see that on a $300,000 residential homestead, that impact would be about $170 more per year. It would be about $370 more on a $600,000 residential homestead. It's not exactly proportional because you may recall there's something called a market value exclusion that helps buy down property taxes for values up to about $515,000, kind of ratchets down, and then it goes away completely on value that's above $515,000. And so that's why a $600,000 property would be paying more than twice what a $300,000 property would pay. If we did a franchise fee approach, the net additional impact would be about $250 per year on a residential gas and electric customer. We also have the numbers on commercial and other non-residential customers if you wanted to get into that. And then the also impact would be roughly the same, a little bit higher, but it really depends on what assumptions you make. If we put it all on sewer and electric, or sewer and water, that should say, excuse me, the impact would be about $290 per year more on top of existing rates. So some differences there, but also some commonalities if you chose one or another. Now, with that said, from our
Bruce,
perspective,
can I just ask
yes,
one
Mr.
question?
Mayor.
Sorry, back on that last slide.
Yep.
You mentioned having it for the commercial on the franchise fees and the utility sewer. Do you have any numbers on what, say, $1 million commercial property would be if it was on the property taxes?
I can run those very easily, yeah.
Okay.
Literally could fire up my computer and do that.
I don't know if that's necessary right now.
I think if you go back one more slide,
Sure.
the franchise fees isn't, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't based on the value of the building, but just on the hookup. So like
Correct.
a large commercial building is going to pay $104 a month versus $25 for small commercial.
Right, I'm asking what the property tax would be, increase would be
Oh, I thought you were talking about the franchise fees.
on
I'm
$1 million,
My
yeah,
apologies.
commercial, yeah. So,
It
but
would, Mr.
I don't know
Mayor,
if
would
we
be
need
quite a
that
bit
tonight, but if we can
more.
maybe get that sent to us or something, yeah.
Yeah, no, we can definitely provide that. You probably recall that commercial properties pay a higher classification rate than do
Well
residential
aware,
homesteads,
yeah.
almost twice as much. You're well aware of that. And so, and there's no market value exclusion or anything to buy down that impact for CI property, commercial industrial. So yeah, the impact would be pretty significant on a CI property of that value. Yep.
Thanks.
So with that, I think it was helpful to sort of level set just to see if we put the full $2.4 million per year on one type of revenue source or another. That said, as your advisor, I would very much suggest that we look at an approach that blends several different revenue sources because each of them has pros and cons, advantages and disadvantages. So property tax supported debt, as you recall, you have a lot of debt that is falling off pretty rapidly in the 2030s. You have a big drop down in 2033 and then another big drop down after 2034 to a fairly nominal amount of property tax supported debt after that point. By no means am I looking to bank on that completely. We know that you have other property tax supported needs in the community, both on the operating budget and the capital budget, right? So we can't just solve a perfect solution for this public works facility and foreclose your ability to address other needs of the city in the future. But there is some capacity that will be freed up in the early 2030s, and I think that's worth factoring into a solution. In addition, your franchise fees are pretty low in terms of nominal dollars right now. Of course, every dollar counts to taxpayers. I'm not discounting that at all. But on a nominal dollar basis, you could say, yeah, we've got some room to move upward on that. On the other hand, if we tried to do the full $2.4 million on franchise fees, this might be hard to believe, but you would need to increase franchise fees by $80, or 80%, not $80, next year, and another 80% on top of that in 2028 to get to that 2.4 million on top of the existing 1.1, right? So you're looking at a pretty big increase in terms of percentages, and as Mr. Adams can tell you, the cost of doing street reconstruction never gets cheaper, and as the city grows, you'll need to keep funding those projects, and so we want to be mindful that you might want to use franchise fees to pay for more than $1.1 million of street projects in the future, knowing that those needs will never get less. And then finally, on the utility rates, they're also maybe a little less visible than property taxes, but still visible to both residents and business owners. And if we looked at a 75%, 25% split between those two utilities, again, trying to solve for the full $2.4 million, you would have to raise your sewer rates by about 40%, and your water rates by about 20%. Certainly that in and of itself would probably be somewhat challenging for folks to swallow. And also we know you have more utility projects that will need to get done, lift stations, water mains, all that kind of good stuff in the future. Again, we don't want to create a solution today for the public works facility that really makes it difficult for you to take care of core infrastructure in the future. So when we looked at all of these elements, both your existing rates, your existing taxes, and your future needs and priorities, I really didn't plan it this way, but it seems to me, in looking at all of your present and future situations and considerations, that something like a third approach could be a viable path forward in both efficiency and affordability for the city and its taxpayers. So what that might look like, and again, you have umpteen ways of structuring this, right? This is not the only way of slicing and dicing, but if you had a third of the project paid from property taxes, I might suggest that you have interest-only payments through 2033. That's when you have that first really big drop-off on your existing tax-supported debt. And then you would have level debt service for, let's say, 19 years after that. That's what we've modeled. So 6 years plus 19 years, 25 years total on the property tax side. I would note that you could actually do the property tax portion faster if you wanted to. There's nothing saying you would need to stretch that out 25 years. But again, it all depends on how much capacity you want to preserve for other needs of the city that would be paid with property taxes. So it's striking that balance. Then on the franchise fee side, you might look to increase fees next year and the year after that. You certainly wouldn't need 80% increases. It would be much, much less than that to support level debt service on, again, about a third of the project cost there on that side of things. And you could have level debt service or near level debt service over roughly 25 years on that part. And then finally, we might suggest something similar from water and sewer utility revenues. We really could look at different allocations between water and sewer. You might recall that in previous iterations, we were saying this much exactly from water, this much exactly from sewer. For purposes of making a decision on whether and how to move forward, I might recommend that we leave that a little more open-ended, but to say, knowing that you've got future needs, again, in both the water fund and the sewer fund, how can we achieve basically a third of the funding from those two sources, again, with somewhat more modest rate increases in 27 and 28, to then just be able to provide for the debt service over 25 years. With all of these, you would have the ability to prepay, or a future council would have the ability to prepay, and also the ability to refinance if rates would allow for a refinancing for interest rate savings, interest cost savings on the future years of the bonds. So we're trying to find a solution for here in 26, 27, 28, but also know that hopefully as the city continues to grow, right, the net impact per customer, per taxpayer is going to become less. We don't want to bank on that saying, oh yeah, it's going to get super easy 10 years from now, but also you're in a really good situation in being elected officials in a growing city in that you know that the net per capita impact should be going down as the city continues to grow and as there's more customers, more franchise fee payers, and more taxpayers in the community. So what might this look like? Okay, I know that's a lot of numbers here. I even have to put on my readers myself. And these are all rounded to thousands. I didn't want to overwhelm you with all sorts of numbers down to the dollar. But what we are showing here is how these three pieces might come together. So let's assume you might issue this debt sometime in 2027. When Jolene and I were talking, we thought maybe in the fall of 2027 would be a realistic assumption. Could be earlier, could be a little bit later, but maybe sometime around a year from now. And so with that, you would have essentially a half year of interest only that would be due on the bonds on or around 2/1 of 28. So you can see that's really coming from fiscal 27, but it would be that bond year and ending on 2/1 of 28, and some pretty nominal interest-only payments. And again, these numbers wouldn't be as rounded. They would be more granular than this, but you can see it's about $800,000 in total from across the three payment sources. And then on the utility revenue side and on the franchise fee side, you can see how you go then in fiscal 28 to level debt service. Does everyone see that? How it's about $800,000 per year in both of those columns for 25 years. That just happens to be roughly 1/3 per column of $2.4 million. So if you let it run its course through fiscal 52, the utility funds between water and sewer and the franchise fee fund would be paying $800,000 each through 2052. A little bit different on the property tax side, and this is again to try to take a little bit of advantage of your existing tax-supported debt falling off. So you can see that in that column, again, we have that half year of payments, and then it's interest only of about $530,000 for 6 years while we get through the remainder of the high water mark on the existing debt. And then you can see we go to level debt service of about $940,000 for the 19 years after that. So this approach would save the city about $400,000 per year in property tax supported debt. Do you need to do this? No, of course not. You could do level debt service just like we're contemplating on the utility revenue and the franchise fee side. But again, it seems to me that when you're balancing all of your competing priorities for the property tax dollars, this is a relatively modest amount of shaping and achieving some near-term affordability that could really make a difference for the city and for your future property tax levies and tax rates over the next 5 to 6 years. But of course, that's ultimately your decision. So then when you put all these together, you can see how the debt service is about $2.1 million for the first 6 years, and then stabilizes at around $2.5 million after that, again, assuming no refinancings or early payments of the bonds. Now let's just focus for a second then on the property tax supported debt. You can see I've replicated that column from the left-hand side on the right-hand side for what that part of the debt might look like. And then I've layered on also your existing bond payments that are paid from property taxes, right? So right now you're at, again, sort of a high watermark of 3 million, 3.1 million, but then in 2034, that drops by about half, right, to 1.6 million, and then down to $400,000 after that. Pretty small amount that's paid from property taxes. So if you look at both the new property tax supported debt and the old debt together, you can see that that still ratchets down pretty rapidly over time, even with the new debt for the public works facility added. And if we go to the next slide, you can see in a stacked bar chart, the orange bars are your existing debt payments on existing bonds. You can see how those fall off in after 2033, and then again after 2034. So if we did interest-only payments for 6 years and then started level debt service, you would still have a lot of capacity, again, for future capital projects or operating priorities of the city. Or, like I noted a few minutes ago, if you decided, gee, we would really like to pay that off sooner, we don't think we'll need all of that capacity opened up for other projects or other priorities, you could certainly reduce the overall interest cost and have some of that principal paid off faster. But again, it's all about striking balances, right? Between efficiency and affordability, and knowing that you have a lot of things you'll want to be investing in here in the city of Forest Lake in the coming years. So in conclusion, but again, this is really just another chapter in the conversation, I want to stress you really do have unlimited options for how you structure this debt and how you repay the bonds. You're in a very good position with your credit rating. You know that you've got strong fund balances. You are not maxed out, if you will, in terms of your existing debt or your ability to use taxes or to use franchise fees or to use utility revenues. It's really about striking the right balance between the three that you feel is affordable for your community and still preserves capacity to do other things besides build this public works facility. So given all of that, again, we think that basically a pie cut in thirds might be an appropriate way to tackle this $35 million cost, and that we would recommend some shaping of the debt on the property tax side, again, to take advantage of that fall off in your tax supported debt, and then level debt service on the franchise fee and the utility revenue side. And from our perspective, that strikes a reasonable and appropriate balance between, again, efficiency, trying to get that debt paid off as efficiently as possible, but also affordability and preserving capacity to do other things in the community as well. So that's what we've got, and I'd be happy to entertain questions or fire up my laptop, Mr. Mayor, whatever you want to do.
Questions?
Bruce, a couple questions. The mayor asked about, obviously commercial properties and things like that. Let's just say $1 million, $2 million, whatever it might be. When I look at the prices that we've used in here for house cost, they seem low to me. And so I would like to see some pricing on not only $600,000 house prices, but $1 million house prices. At 600,000, I look at this and I go, well, that's $370 a year. That's little over $30 a month. A little over $1 a day. Sounds great, and I would be all for that. But I'd like to see some of the higher prices as well.
Any other questions? So if we did this third, do you have the numbers of what percentage increase would have to be on franchise fees to keep the $1 million plus for roads and the sewer and water? You alluded to an 80% increase if we were going fully on franchise fees or the other, the utility funds.
Right.
But do you have a number there if it is this third?
Yeah, it's actually, I didn't put this in the PowerPoint, but it's actually pretty intuitive in that, remember, before we were looking at $2.4 million going just on the franchise fee, just use that example. And now we're looking at about a third of that, but all the other assumptions staying the same. So instead of an 80% and an 80%, you're looking at roughly a 25% and a 25%, or whatever you want to, however you want to massage that. We might, since you had a relatively large increase this year for 2026, you might say, let's take a little bit of a breather for 27, maybe not do as much, but then more again in 2028. But it'd be basically a 50 to 60% increase overall between the 2 years, as opposed to 160+%.
Then after 2 years, then does that
And then that's it.
contemplate keeping it,
Yep.
maybe our normal 3% or whatever that we just kind of built in it for?
Yeah, or you could
you know,
take a holiday
inflation.
and say, okay, we're gonna hold it steady for a little while, and yes, exactly, but at that point, and actually those numbers are a little high. I think those numbers actually generated enough to fund a little bit closer to $1.2 million a year for road projects. So I would say that, Mr. Mayor, you could say 25% and 25% would be a reasonable assumption on what it would take just to get this debt service done at a third going on to the franchise fee.
Okay. And then could you go back to the slide where it shows the debt service falling off?
Yeah.
And I don't know, without Ellie being here, who'd have the answer to this, but, and maybe you do, Bruce. We had a presentation at a workshop last week where we had 3 big road projects, and each of them contemplated bonding. That's not worked into this here, I would assume.
No.
Okay.
No, so great point, Mr. Mayor. That certainly could be a next step and would be very easy for us to do in terms of putting in some assumptions. So you got your orange bars, these blue bars, and then maybe some green bars for these future road projects, and how much of that capacity could be eaten up. And by capacity, I mean the white space right there in the chart. How much of that would be eaten up by future road projects? Yeah.
I think that would be good if council would agree, just because it gives us, we know we have to do at least those 3 and likely more. It would be just nice to have that baked in here, so we're really looking at true numbers for the next 30 years here, or 25 years, on what that might look like. And then, and there was one other thing you said before that I was going to ask about. If we can, on these 20, just harder numbers, maybe on that 25%, and what that would look like for the increases, like to a dollar amount, would be helpful, I think, as well.
The utility increases, so I think in the original planning for this, the water and sewer funds, enterprise funds were going to cover maybe as much as 50%.
Right.
And we had baked into that 10-year plan some rate increases that would accommodate that to some degree. To cover a third based on current, higher priced facility than was originally planned. What do those rate increases look like on the enterprise fund side?
Councilmember Erickson, I'm not sure I know what the estimated cost of the project was for those most recent rate increases. So when we ran our numbers here for if we did 100% on the utility fund, we were assuming 35 million, and it was going to be about a 40% increase on the sewer rates and about a 20% increase on the water rates, based on that roughly 3/4, 1/4 split. But I think when those numbers were done, well, I guess I would have to ask staff exactly what assumptions were used there on those rate increases.
Yeah, I mean, I think the original, in the 10-year plan, this project was like $20 million project.
Okay.
And so water and sewer is basically covering 10 million. So I suppose we're probably right there.
It's probably about a wash.
Yeah, it sounds like.
Yeah, is everyone understanding? I think even though it's a higher cost, it's a lower percentage, and so you're probably gonna be about in the same ballpark. Just intuitively, that would make sense. But certainly we could drill down further in updating that 10-year projection and say, yeah, if it's a third of 35 million, and if however you want to split it up between water and sewer. But there again, I think it would be helpful maybe to talk about what are some of the specific projects that you've got in the offing as well on the water and sewer side. I don't want this to sort of, get in the way of you deciding on whether and how to move forward with next steps, but I would absolutely encourage us having that continued conversation as to what some of those specific dollar amounts might be.
Yeah. I think that 10-year plan had contemplated some of the upcoming projects that, they know they have, but also covering this. I think those water and sewer rates might actually be kind of on par.
Okay.
Or planned rate increases would be on par with what we're talking about tonight.
Great.
One other question. The city maintains some level of investment assets for unplanned emergencies and natural disasters. Is it been contemplated at all to buy this bond down by using any of those available resources?
We have not run scenarios with that assumption. We certainly could, and many cities do that, especially if some of that is really contemplated for capital projects. Part of your very strong credit rating is based on the fact that you have strong reserves for a rainy day, so we wouldn't want to draw too much of that cash down. Also, you're still earning a very good interest rate on those investments, and you would probably be bonding. Well, the bond rate, if you went out the full 25 years, might be a little bit higher than what LE can invest at in today's market. But there again, it's sort of a balancing act. How much cash can you reasonably give up in order to increase affordability, but knowing that you'll also be foregoing investment earnings, and that could have ramifications for your budget as well. But yes, we could absolutely run scenarios assuming whether it's 2 million or 5 million of cash or whatever it might be to buy down that $35 million bonding amount.
The other alternative to using any of that cash, my understanding is that the majority of those earnings are simply reinvested, correct? Could any of those earnings be used to cover some of the debt service?
100%.
Be another way to look at it.
And the nice thing about investment earnings is they are really eligible to be used for any corporate purpose of the city. So you could apply those to debt service, you could apply those to any number of things. Yeah.
I like that idea. I think, you use those investment funds for a major situation or a natural disaster. This is a major deal. We are badly in need of a public works facility, which we've under budgeted, not knowing what that building market has done. And so I think it justifies using some of those to bring that bond down, or that buy some debt down, for sure.
And one thing I'll mention, Mr. Mayor and council members, you've got a great finance team and a great interim city administrator who are on top of these things, but we can also help maybe take a look at your reserve levels, and not that, you know, our word at Ehlers is gospel or anything, but if there's an interest in gauging how much is really appropriate for a rainy day, we could fold that into later discussions as well. Just to backstop, if you do make a decision, I'm just pulling out $5 million because 35 minus 5 is a nice round 30. But if you did want to use $5 million, you might like having some backstopping from somebody like Ehlers saying, yeah, this is really reasonable based on your cash flows and you getting property taxes from Washington County, you know, twice a year and all that kind of stuff.
Still enough direction probably to come back with some more things.
I think so. I've got quite the list
So
here,
between,
Mr.
yeah,
Mayor,
so no, it was a good conversation. I'm glad, I appreciate everyone's input on that. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right.
And we really appreciate these conversations and whatever else we can provide to help build the business case for moving forward on what seems to be an important project for the city. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, good night. All right, we'll go to 8B, Hidden Creek 3rd Edition Easement Vacation. Abby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the council, just give me a second here. Never gets old. Please don't change it. All right, tonight for your consideration is Hidden Creek 3rd Edition's Easement Vacation. So tonight also on the agenda is consideration of a final plat for Hidden Creek 4th Edition. That 4th Edition plat is gonna go down in an area right where we have an easement for a temporary cul-de-sac that was associated with the 3rd Edition plat. So where the roadway is coming down Ely, I think it's Ely Avenue? Thank you. We have a temporary cul-de-sac. Tonight, the consideration is vacating that easement for that public cul-de-sac. And then what will happen is, should you choose to approve the final plat will go over then where that temporary cul-de-sac was, replacing it, extending Ely Avenue. And as part of those conditional approvals, we'd also look to get a new easement at the south end of Ely Avenue in the future. So moving the black circle away to move that line down at the next application that you're going to listen to. You have to hold a public hearing on easement vacations. That's a statutory requirement. The purpose really is to look to see that there's no public purpose for this public infrastructure at any point anymore. So tonight, staff is asking you to open the public hearing, receive any public testimony, and then close the public hearing. I will note that street vacations or vacations do require a 4/5 vote of the council. Tonight, for your consideration, though, staff has has drafted a resolution number 082426, that would that would vacate the Ely Avenue. So there is a draft motion here for you, motion to adopt resolution 08242602, vacating the temporary cul-de-sac access easement, recorded as Washington County document number 4474823. You have any questions for me?
No. All right, with that, at 6:50, we'll open up the public hearing on the vacation of the temporary cul-de-sac access. Anyone here to speak to that? Anyone, last time, here to speak to the vacation of the cul-de-sac access? Seeing no one else, at 6:51, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council. Right, anyone willing to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 08-24-2602, vacating the temporary cul-de-sac access easement recorded as Washington County document number 4474823.
I'll second.
Motion, a second, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we'll move on to Hidden Creek 4th Edition final plat approval. Abby.
Thank you, Mayor Roberts, members of the council. Tonight for your consideration is the final plat for Hidden Creek 4th Edition. This has been submitted by Headwaters Land Group and represents the last remaining lots to be developed in the existing Hidden Creek neighborhood. As a reminder, we have seen concept plans and working through the preliminary plat process for Hidden Creek South. That neighborhood and Ely Avenue will scoop down and move back to the east on Hidden Creek. That is separate at this time from this development. Hidden Creek was originally approved with 125 lots. Originally, it was going to be 2 phases, kind of an east phase, west phase. We've broken it out into 4 development lots. We're at 18 remaining lots to be platted for this neighborhood. So those lot widths do vary as low as 44 feet wide, but do get as wide as 126 feet. That is approval as part of the preliminary plat that was approved in early 2022 that gave that averaging of 70 feet across all 125 lots in the neighborhood. That access and circulation, we just vacated that existing access or that existing cul-de-sac at the south end of Ely. Now that that's gone, the plat will extend Ely Avenue, and as a condition of approval, we will need a new access or turnaround cul-de-sac at the south end of this development. Construction access from Headwaters Parkway is something that I'll get into in the next slide, but the goal here is to try to minimize the disruption to the neighborhood as it has expanded significantly more since the 3rd phase. Public improvements do include water, sanitary sewer, storm sewer streets, completing of drainage, trail, and park grading work. So all of that still has to be done with this final plat. So one area that is of concern for the city is construction access to the remaining work. So as a reminder, Hidden Creek as a whole was 125 lots. 107 lots have been platted, and I can't say all, but I would say we're probably at maybe 75% of those 107 lots are built out. We have had in our development agreements requirement for a temporary construction access to the south side of Ely Avenue to try to funnel some of that development related work over to the west side of the property so we're not snaking through the neighborhood. We really want to see minimal construction traffic running through that neighborhood. So what is included in your staff report is based on a city or a planning commission recommendation that would remain in place and until the time 85% a new home completion. That's different than the current plat. The current plat essentially says on the 3rd phase essentially says, hey, use that access road as much as you can, but if you're going to drive through that neighborhood, be cautious, and we had developed a cautious plan. That is one area just for discussion tonight, in that the way the access road is lined out, it does impede on some of that future development through that area. Staff has drafted the resolution based on the Planning Commission's recommendation, though, that we would keep that in place and require all construction traffic to utilize that route. Also, before building permitting, we do need to ensure that all the other public improvements, our roads, our sidewalks, our infiltration basins, are in place. As a reminder, even though I talked a minute about Hidden Creek South, Hidden Creek 4th Edition does represent the end of this development. We want all public improvements done before we're going to start issuing building permits. And then before we close out this development, we want to make sure we have workhorse lighting, storm cleaning, record plans, punch lists, all those teeny little housekeeping items that sometimes can linger in phased developments. We want to get it all done as part of this development. So tonight before you is the consideration of a resolution that does encapsulate conditions of approval. Those conditions do indicate that we do need to enter into development agreement. We will want some financial securities, including 125% of all the incompleted work, replacement easement that we just talked about in the previous application, and then finalizing all the plans, permits, easements, fees, those fees including Parkland dedication of, at the moment, $2,500 per lot. The Planning Commission's recommendation is to move forward with the approval of a resolution. That did come as a 6-1. There was one commission member who just thought it wasn't quite ready, just because we have a lot of conditions. But that's pretty customary in our development, that we still have quite a bit of loose ends to kind of clean up before we finalize the bow with the development agreement usually. So tonight for your consideration, staff would recommend you adopt resolution 08242603, and there is a recommended motion up on the screen. Developer Paul Bergman of Headwaters Land Group is here. If you have questions for him, do you have any questions for me?
Council, any questions?
No.
I didn't know it was so moving, Councilmember Miller.
Allergies.
Mr. Rubin, would you like to come up and address the council?
Yeah, Mayor, members of the City Council, could you clarify for me, Abby, on the road, this temporary construction access road? What are you asking for, or what is?
The
what's
temporary
being
construction
proposed?
access road as it exists today,
Yeah,
to be used until 85% of home completion. That is what the Planning Commission recommended.
so not just the construction of the 18 lots road, but the
Correct.
construction of the homes.
Correct.
Okay. We can't, we will work and try to maintain that, we will work and maintain the construction access road during the construction of the road, but to maintain that road till 85% of the homes are constructed, which could be a couple years, what are we doing in the middle of the winter? How are we maintaining this temporary construction road? We have roads there that are built to the standards. If they're too narrow, why don't we come in through the north with our, I mean, I understand, and we'll do whatever we can. I think Amanda talked to our attorney today on this road. During the construction, we'll try to limit as much impact to the streets as we can through the neighborhood, but to do it during the actual home construction, then I want you to deny my final plat, because we can't do that. It's just not feasible. I mean, that's I don't even know how we would do it. I mean, you're asking me to maintain a temporary road construction for 2 years or so. So I'm not sure what the deal is on that. I think we resolved the other major issue was the pond. That's in process and going to be started. What about, where do we sit with the dirt pile? Is there any issues that we have to talk to on the dirt pile?
I think we can finish that out in final grading plan
Perfect.
and through the development agreement.
So, and Amanda, I think you talked to Joel. Can you help me? And this, through the construction of the homes, isn't what I understood took place with you and Joel. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Your Honor, Counsel, I think there was a misunderstanding then, because the communication with Mr. Holstead was that your concern was that you would have to put in a new road, and that you didn't have a concern about using the current road.
I don't, but I don't know how this current road can be maintained through the winter, through the freeze thaw, through the rain. I mean, when it's dry, you can land a 747 out there. When it's wet, you can't ride a bike through it. So I don't know, I mean, in order to make this road to last 2 years is a huge cost. I mean, I don't even get why that's even on the table. I mean, we've got roads in place that are to the standard, our loads, that we're bringing in even for the road development. I talked to the contractor. He thinks there'll be approximately 10 to 12 days of construction traffic on the roads. That's including the delivery of the pipe, plastic, lightweight pipe, some gravel. The main traffic will be when the 2-foot base is brought in, which will take about 4 days. So there's not a significant amount of traffic that's gonna be done to develop these 18 lots, but guys, it's just not reasonable to ask me to put a road that I have to maintain for 2 years.
Abby, was this was a new condition added on by the planning commission?
Yeah, the planning commission really wanted to memorialize that the construction traffic included construction traffic associated with the construction of new homes. I do concur with Mr. Bergman that that is mildly uncustomary. It's not as common for cities to do that. I think the concern was that we are at the tail end of an oversized cul-de-sac, and there are just more homes in that vicinity. The one thing I will say is that I've highlighted the condition that is word for word in the resolution. It's on page 257 of the packet that does indicate they shall use the temporary access, and it says, when weather or deterioration makes the temporary access unsafe or not reasonable passable, we could also allow for access onto the roads. Now, I understand that that still would require all construction traffic, even home building construction traffic, but we have put at least requirements in here that if weather becomes a problem and this is not able to be used, we can authorize something differently.
What does that look like, and how do we, I mean, does that as a change in the condition, and that would have to come back to the city, to staff to, okay, we've got 3 weeks of wet conditions, now you're okay to use the city streets?
It gives the engineer, after consultation with Public Works, the authority to put it in writing. I think it does make it a little clunky, or could be subjective. I think that this is a good talking point for the council to see if you concur with the planning commission's recommendation. Just because I think that that is something that definitely could set a precedence as well if we're going to be requiring temporary access roads and all development all construction traffic to use them.
I think for me that the difference here, you hear about some more of established neighborhoods, Chestnut Creek that has been there for 7-8 years, and all of a sudden a new development or new additions coming, and you have all this traffic. Most of those homes are relatively new, and they've all experienced or been benefited from people coming in and building into that neighborhood and building their homes. So I think they would be more understandable that, hey, this is just part of living in a brand new development, and hopefully this thing gets done sooner than later. I would be comfortable with waiving that requirement on this.
I don't know, I think some of the concerns that they've had in the past, I don't know if it can change or not, when you're coming through a new development or an existing development, maybe the school times when kids are being picked up or anything like that, or the busier parts of the day. I think that's what they're more concerned about, is the maybe just day-to-day traffic and how that construction traffic might interfere with some of that. I don't know if there's a way to work around any of that. I think that seemed to be one of their big concerns in the past.
Abby, in your presentation, you talked about a safety plan that's been used on the other ones. Like, that's worked out well, has it?
During the third phase, the way the condition of approval, and it was embedded into the development agreement, if I remember right, Amanda could correct me if I was wrong, is it just said all construction traffic and delivery shall use the temporary access from Headwaters Parkway to the greatest extent possible. In the event it cannot be used, a safety plan will be implemented. And they supplemented with a separate safety plan that included signage of trucks hauling, not to exceed a certain mile per hour, daily safety meetings. We also required a similar safety plan for, you brought up Chestnut Creek, again, an established neighborhood. Havenwood, kind of in the middle, in that neighborhood, a little bit different, where they're gonna coordinate, if I remember correctly, and please don't quote me on this one, that there was some concern specifically about school bus pickup and drop-off times, and to coordinate a lag during those, very kind of limited windows. So it's up, both of those safety plans, staff worked through with the developer. I would say that if the council is not favorable to condition number 12, then possibly it's a motion to approve the resolution with amendment to number 12, consistent with past development practices for Hidden Creek, which would then revert back to what we've currently been doing in the neighborhood. The only thing that I would say is we probably would want to amend it slightly, that the access road is removed and the site is restored upon prior to completion of the neighborhood. I can type that.
Do you,
Go ahead, Paul.
I'll do that. It's not an important, whenever you want the road removed, we'll do that. I didn't understand exactly, but it doesn't matter. It's insignificant.
I think
When she wants us to remove the road, we will.
Yeah. Any other questions, concerns, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement. I think that, I think it's number 12. It's calling for 16 homes to be done and certificates of occupancy to be held before this road is vacated is a little bit over the top.
Abby, you're typing something else for
I'm
potential?
just typing it up really quick.
Yep. Thank you for that. And Paul, things continue to move out there. Good sales are great. Good ahead of schedule.
The builder called me tonight wanting to make sure that we got these lots approved. It's going so well.
Good.
And he's pushing us to keep going on the south, so,
That's good.
yeah.
It's a little choppy, but I added in there that with amendment to condition 12 be identical to Hidden Creek 3rd edition, and road is removed and restored prior to development completion. Temporary access road. That might be instead of calling it road. Trying to be a little bit more specific.
Any other questions for me?
I don't think so. Council, does
Thank you.
Yeah.
Too far.
Could I make a friendly amendment to the motion? Could we remove the word identical? Technically, we want it to be similar to,
Similar to.
because we're going to requiring that they restore the road, and I'm going to tie that to the letter of credit. In other words, they don't get the letter of credit release until that road is gone, and so I want the ability to put in a little bit of teeth, please.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks. I'll pull this up for you then. There we go.
All right. Who is willing to make a motion on this?
I'll give it a shot. How's that sound? I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 0824-26-03, conditionally approving the Hidden Creek 4th edition final plat, case number J26-0446, based on the findings of fact and subject to the conditions contained in the resolution. This may be amended by the council with the amendment to the condition number 12 be similar to the Hidden Creek 3rd edition, and temporary access road is removed and restored prior to development and completion.
All right, motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Paul. Thank you. All right, 8D, Parkland dedication fee study. Abby.
Thank you, Mayor Roberts, members of the council. Tonight, bringing back for you another discussion and seeking direction on the Parkland dedication study. So as a reminder, feels like longer ago, but your last meeting, you reviewed the Parkland dedication study, the history of Parkland dedication in the city, including those historical increases. We talked a little bit about identifying the needs, the capital plan. We looked at our comparable cities, and then the recommendation of the study that does indicate we should be increasing our Parkland dedication fee in lieu of $39.2909 per residential unit and $89.6691 per acre of non-residential development. The council was concerned that that $89.6681 per non-residential acre of development when compared to our peer cities might be a little high and asked us to fill in some blanks that staff had. So included in your packet was this table, which goes through each of those cities and kind of helps provide a little bit more information about the non-residential dedication. I included in here the percentage, just to give you some reference to the city of Forest Lake is not proposing to increase the percentage of non-residential dedication. We're at 7%, if I remember correctly. I will double check that, but it's 6 or 7%. So we are actually just slightly above some cities, but below some other cities. Then when we look at that acreage, we're really looking at those ones that have true dollar values associated with them as opposed to a fair market value or an appraised value. One of the things to note is how they're applying, how cities are applying that per acre fee. Some are applying it on the total net acres, so it's $9,000 for every single acre. Some are applying it just on the dedicated area. So in Rosemount, where we're like, holy moly, Rosemount must have a great park system at $90,000 an acre. That's $90,000 an acre on what is dedicated. So if they have 10 acres and they require 10%, 1 acre, that's 90,000. In the city of Forest Lake, if you have a 10-acre development and it's 60,000, excuse me, math in my head is a little hard. A 10-acre development, 6%, we're gonna require 0.6 acre, right, Amanda? We can do math together in our head. We take that times our new valuation of almost 9,000, we'd be at 54. We're under then what we thought would be that kind of maybe premier dedication. But that does put us in line, though, again, back to where we are in peer cities of that total net acres of where we're sitting in terms of how we're asking for those fees and when we're applying them. So included also in your packet tonight for discussion was, again, that same recommendation, not to change from $39.2909 per residential unit or the $89.6691 per non-residential acre, but I did include in there that analysis of right now the $89.6681 per non-residential acre is based on 1/2 of the residential rate. I did include what that would be if it was 45% of the assumed employee need, 40% of the assumed employee need, or 1/3 of assumed employee need. And the reason I did that is for council discussion of, we can acknowledge that our employees that are coming into our community during the day are using our park system, but probably not using it at the same level our residents are. What is that, maybe percentage that they are using it compared to residents? Does that make sense? Right now, the study assumes 1/2, but there are some other numbers there to kind of, if you still think that that's high, staff would recommend we kind of assume a value so that we can still kind of keep the methodology of our dedication study consistent. So tonight I'm asking you to discuss this and provide some direction. I'd like to try to get back an ordinance amendment to you soon to modify the Parkland dedication fee. Not only do we have to modify the code, but we would also have to modify the fee schedule. And we would like to get that to you in front of you, relatively soon as the council is comfortable. So, do you have any questions?
Yeah, could you go back one slide, please? Can you walk me through this? So the non-residential, what do these percentages mean?
So the non-residential, the percentage means how much of the land area of the development. If you have a 10-acre development site, in Elk River, 6%, if it's commercial, 6% needs to be dedicated to the city.
So they're dedicating 6% of that,
The land.
and they're paying some dollars in lieu of?
So it's one or the other. So Parkland dedication is, we want land, and if we don't get land, we'd like fee in lieu. So in Elk River, if it's a commercial development, they want 6% of the developable land area, And then if that isn't suitable parkland, they would like 6% of the county's assessed valuation.
Got it. Okay, so Farmington and Hastings is 5% of fair market value. Lino, it's 10% or 27.25 of the total acreage being developed. So if it's a 10 acre, it'd be 27,000.
Correct. So
Okay.
where Lino has a lower per acreage dollar value, they do have one of the higher land dedication requirements for non-residential.
And so whatever dollar we settle on, is it on total net acres?
Ours is on total net acres, correct?
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? This was good clarification. I think this was good. I feel comfortable moving forward.
Quick question.
Yeah.
So you've given us some options here as far as a third, 40, 45%, or 50%. What are other cities or municipalities?
So most cities haven't done this kind of a comprehensive methodology determination. I would say we're a little bit more groundbreaking. I don't want to say groundbreaking. I'm sure there's cities out there that have done this, but we spent some really good time creating some methodology to help back the numbers to say, this is the system, these are the needs, this is the dollar value. So it isn't as common for cities to say, oh, our non-residential rate is just half the residential. This was staff and our consultants' way to kind of say, well, our employees probably aren't here as much as residents, but we have just as many residents leave during the day, workers that come in. Maybe our workers that are in the community, employees that are in the community are using the park system about a third of what our residents are using it. Maybe our residents are using it 3 hours a day and our non-residents or employees are using it a third, or an hour a day, or an hour and a half a day. That's kind of the mindset that I'd like to kind of hear the council's thoughts on.
And what is our non-residential park dedication fee in lieu of now?
$7,000 an acre.
I mean, I guess personally, I doubt that half of all employees use our park system. I mean, I think they come, they go to work, and they go home. I mean, as our employees who leave probably do the same, and they come home and take their kids to the park. So I'm not sure if I'm in agreement with the assumption that half of them are using it, but at the same time, I don't want us to go backwards.
Commissioner Erickson, may I just clarify that it's not half the employees that are using it, it's that the employee is using it half the time of a resident. So if an average resident's maybe using it 2 hours a day, an employee is using it at half, 1 hour a day. I just wanted to clarify what that methodology was. I can hear, though, that might be high, which is why staff had included some other percentages in there.
So I guess my thought is if we want to use this methodology, if we feel like this is a good approach, then I would probably say, consider the 40% to have some level of increase versus going back to a third. But I'm not sure that I'm comfortable going beyond that myself.
Yeah, I would agree. It's half as much. An employee that comes in who isn't a resident seems a little bit high. So to back that down, to be a little bit more realistic and yet still not go backwards, 45 or 40% I'd be comfortable with. And I appreciate the idea of having some type of methodology to justify these charges.
Yeah, these aren't arbitrary costs
Yeah.
like we've had in the past. This is our system and these are our needs.
Yeah, and I think, it's interesting, I think we asked last time, what is the feedback on this from developers, or what is it? Is it too high, and there really sounded like there wasn't much negative pushback or feedback on?
No.
on what
For
we-
non-residential, we've charged this fee for any of our non-residential subdivisions, which have been minor, small since I've been here, but have not heard any pushback from any of them.
Abby, could I get clarification? So just on the residential units, I just want to be clear. So on a 1 acre piece of land, if we develop that residential, we get how many lots out of that approximately based on our lot sizes today?
3.6.
3.6. Yeah.
3.
Okay, so let's use 0.6, but we'll leave that off. So $3,929 per unit times 3 for an acre residential.
Correct,
So well over $10,000.
correct.
And yet, for a commercial, we're only gonna charge them $8,900, which I've never gotten any pushback in all the years that, you know, I've worked with this stuff. And in terms of development, I think those prices are very fair comparing to our peer cities. I mean, wouldn't you, based on the analysis you did and what you looked at, wouldn't you say that's pretty fair?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have brought to you the 89, 11, 60, 89, 66, 81, had I not think that it was consistent with some of these peer cities. Especially when we are looking at some of the cities that are charging based on fair market or assessed valuation, they are paying a much higher price. We're basing our valuation per acre on a dollar per square foot, so 43,560. We know that that number is higher in not residential and non-residential. I would say that we probably have a lower than what's really represented here in terms of some of these other cities that aren't doing a per unit calculation.
Right, that's what I meant to say. Thank you.
No, you make a good point, Councilmember Miller. Are we adopting specific numbers, or are we adopting a policy that's going to cause these numbers to change over time?
Well, both. Tonight, staff would recommend that you accept the Parkland dedication study and accept its methodology, and then direct staff to draft an ordinance memorializing not only it, but the new fees. We would anticipate reviewing these on a fairly regular basis, maybe once a year, maybe every other year or so, as development increases, as land prices increase, to see if they need to increase or even decrease as the community becomes developed out. So as the community becomes developed out, our land values should lower in some spots.
So I guess I would incorporate into the policy what that review rhythm is going to be, if it's annually or biannually or every other year, right? And you want that in the policy?
I think it makes sense. I mean, if you're gonna, so if you're arbitrarily just picking it, it'd be nice to review it every other year or something. Could that be added to?
Yeah, we can.
I understand what, Councilmember Miller, what you're saying. I just, if we're gonna have a specific methodology, the idea, and I can get over this, the idea that a employee that doesn't live here, that comes to work here 8 hours a day or whatever, uses the park as much as half of what a resident that's here 365 days out of the year, so.
Maybe I'm thinking wrong, but is non-residential, would that be considered apartment buildings as well?
That is a great question. Generally, we've applied the residential unit to non-residential or to apartment buildings, even though sometimes they are considered a commercial entity.
Okay.
But generally, we're looking at that residential unit. We can clarify that in
Yeah.
that policy.
Yeah, I
coming
think it would
forward.
be good, because if you build an apartment building that has 300 residents, right, they're more likely gonna use the park
Yeah.
than someone who has a yard, you know, so I think that's good clarification as well.
That we would continue to use the residential unit for our apartment complex or multifamily complex.
If the council members agree.
Well, those apartment buildings go back and forth, it seems like, depending on what policy we're talking about,
Right.
between commercial and, I mean, I know the developer of Timber Ridge, talked about how big a check he wrote,
Yeah.
when he built those two phases, and the residential was applied at that point. If we treat multifamily housing as commercial, does that affect the math on this then, in any way?
Well, if you look at about 12,000 an acre for residential versus 10,000, I mean, we were doing easy math there, and I don't do easy math in my head necessarily, but it does look like residential would fashion a higher rate for multifamily. Some cities will have, a lot of communities have a sliding scale for multifamily, where they will actually increase higher with multifamily for exactly what Councilmember Miller was saying. It's likely strong users of the park system. Other communities will actually have that lower, knowing that they are, that there's a larger dedication lump sum, and to not prohibit development in that way. Specifically, we didn't propose any sort of methodology that way because we base this per resident and our residents per household. And so really looking at how much each household on average citywide would be, didn't matter if it's a single family or a multifamily apartment or multifamily unit.
And no pushback on these multifamily, because that number gets to be large on that when you're proposing that fee to?
Thus far, our most recent development was Forest Creek Creek apartment down by the library. That was a $2,500 that was not, there was no question about that. And so I don't believe, this is a really customary dedication fee or land dedication or fee in lieu of land dedication. I think, it's been challenged quite a bit over the years because of just development costs money, but that's why we really do think it's important to adopt a methodology that says this is our system, these are our future employees and residents, this is how much each of these things actually cost us.
So what, I like this discussion. I'm glad that we're having a policy discussion and ultimately you're aligned on some numbers. Does it make sense does staff have indigestion with having a third criteria of there's residential, there's multifamily, and there's commercial?
We would need to go back and do analysis. What we would end up needing to do is breaking out our projected units, both multifamily and single family, and breaking those out, and then wanting a percentage. It would take a little bit more analysis on the dedication study. Not like we can't do it, but we'd want to figure out what that methodology is and fairly good support with the comp plan, and then, plug in the new comp plan when it's ready, so then that way don't have, again, arbitrary numbers.
Yeah. I think obviously the policy is going to have to inform us and future councils and future staff whether or not multifamily is residential or commercial. I kind of feel like it's a stand on its own entity myself for this.
I wouldn't disagree. It's as much some extra work. If we're going to do this, let's do it right and get it.
Can I make a suggestion that maybe we table this and move it into a workshop setting? I think what I'm hearing is there's some, I think you guys, it sounds like the council is fairly comfortable with the residential unit for a single family residential, but maybe uncertain about applying that to a multifamily unit. I think that there's a difference between a multifamily rental and a multifamily condo, right? A condo is a single family unit. And so I think what staff would want to do is really prepare some of that, and then again, pulling our peer cities data so you can see what that really looks like. And then maybe having just a little bit more of a sit down, making sure anything you think of between now and maybe I was about to say August, but August is almost over, mid-September, that let me know, and then that way you have a good amount of information prepared for you so that we get the direction and that workshop and bring something back thereafter. Does that sound good?
Yeah, I appreciate the extra willingness to do that extra work. I think, again, if we're going to do this, let's make sure we're checking all the boxes and have all the different areas covered for different properties, classifications.
I like that idea.
Do you need a motion to table this item?
Sure, if you want. Yeah.
So moved.
That was quick.
All right.
I'll second it.
All right, motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And we have this tabled. All right, going into 8E, tobacco license consideration, Prime Tobacco. Amanda.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. The next item before you is a tobacco license submitted by Majid Nitayashun for Prime Tobacco, proposed to be located at 843 West Broadway Avenue, Suite C. Staff has completed its review of the application, which is generally complete. However, the applicant only needs to submit his updated certificate of insurance for the business. The police department has completed and cleared the applicant's background check. Staff's primary concern for this application is the proposed location. Staff determined that the property is located within 500 feet of Bixby Park, which does not comply with City Code, Chapter 11804, Paragraph H. A tobacco business did previously operate at this location. However, the city's tobacco regulations were amended in 2019 to establish the park buffer requirement. The prior business subsequently became a non-conforming use. Under City Code Chapter 153.051, Paragraph H, a non-conforming use expires when it has been abandoned for a continuous period of 1 year or more. Because tobacco sales have not operated at this location since 2021, according to the city's record, the previous non-conforming use has expired. Accordingly, the proposed business must comply with the city's current tobacco regulations, including the 500-foot buffer requirement. Staff are recommending that council deny the tobacco license application based on the expiration of the non-conforming use pursuant to Chapter 153.051, Paragraph H, and the property's proximity to Bixby Park pursuant to Chapter 11804, Paragraph H. And that concludes my presentation. We are available for questions.
Council, questions?
So I got a question. So Abby, you and I have had discussions from an EDA standpoint of possibly seeing some of this land developed that's south of the park. It's apparently technically part of the park. Has that always been parkland, or did we just end up with that land next to the park and now it's parkland?
It has always been parkland. It was actually deeded to the city, do you remember, in the 70s by MnDOT? It's, I'm not exactly sure why, but there was a deed restriction in place that we did reach out to MnDOT last year, 2 years ago, to ask them about the deed restriction. Because the deed restriction said it always needed to be maintained as parkland, and at that time, MnDOT had said 30 years has lapsed. That provision isn't in place anymore. I'd have to do some research on the why, because there was specific of why it was given to us as parkland, and because of the why, that's where the 30-year came into play, and because that 30-year lapsed, we don't need to anymore. Long story short, yes, it is currently still parkland. It's never been officially discussed between the council and the EDA about removing it from the parks system, and then starting to look at development options, but it is one of those parcels that have been preliminarily identified as the opportunity for EDA we talked about a vacant building or a vacant lands analysis for potential redevelopment or sale, but this time, no, it's still sitting in the park system.
I suspect looking at the map, if that lower section looks like a little handle wasn't part of the park system, then this would have been on the consent agenda, right? It's got to be over 500 feet, isn't it?
I believe when you look, Mr. Mayor, members of council, at where the actual park amenities are, it is substantially further than what the property line to property line analysis is right now. I can certainly pull up GIS and do a quick measurement to see if it is within that 500 feet. However, right now, based on conversations that we've had with legal, even though the park amenities are further from the proposed location, it doesn't resolve the issue that we have with the language in the code at this time.
Well, looks like we got some things to clean up.
So-
Mr. Mayor, members of council, just a little bit of context. I did some, looking back at the 2019 ordinance amendment that was brought forward, and there were quite a few provisions within our tobacco chapter that were changed at that time, and it seemed like the precipice for this was really, that was the time where the state approved cities moving from an 18-year requirement for tobacco sales, opening it up to 21, changing that age requirement. And that was kind of the precipice, from what I can see based on meeting minutes and staff reports, to kind of facilitate that change. And at that same time, they included that 500-foot requirement to make that consistent with what the requirement is for liquor licenses. I don't see that there was any consideration given to businesses which may be along Lake Street in our downtown district, because Lakeside Park is right there as well. So this could potentially impact businesses who are looking to open up in that area of the city as well. I think a reasonable option might be that council might want to direct staff to bring back a potential ordinance amendment which allows some consideration for businesses along that Broadway corridor and our Lake Street corridor, because we don't want to stifle business in that area, but staff's hands are really tied in this situation with that 500-foot requirement in these areas. So if that's something council's interested in doing, we can certainly look at that. I know I have heard previously from a couple council members that there's concerns that we have a lot of standalone tobacco shops in town as well. So, this might be an opportunity to not only look at that distance requirement and maybe make it more business friendly, but also perhaps look at putting a cap on those tobacco standalone shops, not to include the current application. So our existing amount of tobacco standalone shops plus this one, because we wouldn't want to negatively impact this business, because we're working through these things as they're coming to staff's attention.
I have a question. Jolene, maybe you could answer this. Recently, we've had some changes in the state with dispensaries. I know we determined distances for our dispensaries from public buildings and things like that. What was that distance? Do you recall? It was
is
the
500
same?
Yeah.
So I'm, as far as opening up that ordinance and changing the distance, I'm open to that. I think in this particular case here, because of the layout of the park that Councilmember Erickson mentioned, the fact that there was an existing business here at one time operating a tobacco operation, I'm open to trying to make some changes so that to allow this particular one. But if it's a way to kind of help maybe clean up some other things, and I'm not opposed to the idea. I mean, do we have a cap on liquor license?
We don't have a cap. Built into statute, there are some caps because liquor licenses are also regulated at the state level. So essentially, while we issue liquor licenses here, we're almost like registering liquor businesses. So there are some caps built into state statute for liquor. I don't know those off the top of my head. But those primarily speak to off-sale businesses, so liquor stores. We don't have, the council did implement a cap for cannabis retail when that was being worked through here at the city level. Originally, there was no cap. After some further realizations about the realities of those businesses, council did want to put a cap on those. So we've had those capped at 3 within the city. but there's no cap whatsoever on tobacco. And I think that there's a distinction between tobacco shop, a standalone tobacco shop, which is defined in our code, and businesses which offer tobacco products as part of their other convenience sales, you know, gas stations, the Walmarts, the Walgreens of the city, so.
Any idea how many standalone we have?
Amanda, you did calculate that, correct? And I can't recall off the top of my head, but I think we have 5.
Correct. I believe, not counting this current applicant, Mayor, I believe that we have somewhere between 4 and 5 standalone tobacco product shops.
Seems like more. As you drive around, but, so, yeah, I don't know, then maybe a cap probably isn't necessary, but I would like to somehow make, you know, whether it's through the Broadway corridor, I mean, we have an exception on cannabis for downtown with parks right there, but we allow it downtown, so it wouldn't be anything different if we can make an exception, whether it's here or throughout in different areas. I don't,
Our business districts.
yeah, in business districts, I'd be open to that, so,
So making it similar to cannabis?
not really, just, the only thing similar is that we have an exception where we took Lakeside Park out, where we're not using a buffer at all. Like, the park basically comes right up to those, buildings downtown. At 250 though, I think, is that, if it went to 250 on there, is that still, or is it within that 250? It seems like it's.
250 wouldn't get us there for this property, just given the parcel where Bixby Park is located.
So from that standpoint, it'd be a policy change relative to the Broadway Business District.
Correct.
I'd certainly be open to that, and I still want to get the EDA moving on looking at land that can be developed.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, I did speak with the applicant last week because I did want to make sure that we were being transparent about the challenges here. And he did indicate that he still has a lot of work to do before he would even be ready to open up and, start welcoming business. So he was comfortable with, if council needed to put a pause on consideration of his application and look at some other options. He didn't think that would be detrimental to his plan for opening his business.
Well, and that's really, I mean, I guess legally, is that the only option here, or could we approve this even though it goes against what our ordinance says?
I mean, I would prefer to, if it's not detrimental to him, and Amanda, I'll let you speak to your thoughts afterwards, but I'd prefer to table this, if possible, until a later date, just so if we are planning to look at ordinances or policies, to get those situated first and then come back to approve something that is in, that's legal with our ordinances and our policies, so.
Yeah, I'm not.
That's what
I wasn't making a motion there to.
Yeah.
No, I would agree. Does that make sense? Is that like, some of the qualifiers on this thing would be, can you put like to where the Central Park area is? I mean, how can you do that? Because this is that weird little stretch there. This could be a one-off, right? I can't think of another park that would have that big of a non-usable spot that's in a commercial district. I don't know. Maybe there is.
I think, Mr. Mayor, the real challenge is just the way this park is situated in the district that it's in right now, but also Lakeside too, to your point with what we did with the cannabis buffer. So I think we need to put some language around both of those areas to ensure that there's some consideration for business growth in those areas.
So do we need to deny, or can we just table?
I would recommend that you table it this time. I think that would be prudent, and I think that staff can work between now and our next meeting to bring you back an ordinance amendment to consider. Should council decide to approve an ordinance amendment after you review what we can come up with, then council could certainly remove this from the table and take action on it at that time.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we table the tobacco license consideration for Prime Tobacco.
I'll second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are tabled that.
Mr. Mayor, can I just seek one point of clarification? Would the council also like to direct staff to look at a revision to City Code Chapter 118 and to bring back an amendment which captures the spirit of the conversation here tonight?
Yes, please.
Would anyone like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. All right, next item, 8G, interim use permit cannabis retail. Did I miss one? Oh, massage, I did. 8F, massage license consideration. And Amanda.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Before you tonight, two license applications submitted by Mr. Peng Shen, an individual massage therapy license, as well as a massage business license for Northern Wellness Center LLC. Mr. Shen submitted the required applications, fees, and supporting documentation. Mr. Shen chose the experience-based licensing pathway under City Code Section 11503. He submitted an affidavit stating that he had at least 1 year of prior massage therapy experience. He also submitted a certificate represented to be a massage therapy certificate issued by the state of Maine. During staff's review, we attempted to verify that information. The employment history provided by Mr. Shen cannot be verified. More significantly, staff contacted the state of Maine to verify the massage therapy certificate submitted with his application materials. The state confirmed that the license number on their certificate belongs to a different individual, and the state's licensing records contain no record of a massage therapy license for Mr. Shen. Based on these findings, staff determined that this application materials contain fraudulent or deceptive information regarding the applicant's professional experience and state licensure. Mr. Shen has since sent multiple emails to city staff expressing his position that he takes professional compliance and regulatory standards seriously. Staff has considered those statements. However, they do not change the information that was submitted with the license application or the city's obligation to evaluate the application based on the requirements of the city's code. City Code Section 115, 8.18, paragraph A provides grounds for denial of a massage license when an application contained fraudulent or deceptive information. The matter has also been referred to the FLPD for further investigation. Therefore, staff recommend that City Council deny both the individual massage therapy license for Mr. Peng as well as the massage business license for Northern Wellness Center LLC pursuant to City Code Section 115.18, paragraph A. I'm available for questions.
Council, any questions?
I appreciate the work you did to follow up and investigate, and with that, I'm happy to make a motion to deny both the individual massage therapy license application for Mr. Shengpeng and the massage business license application for Northern Wellness Center LLC.
Motion, is there a second?
I'll second
All
that.
right, motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, now we are at HG, interim use permit cannabis retail, 955 West Broadway. As many know, I am in the cannabis industry, and what I've done here since being in that industry, I have abstained from any votes and actually left the council chambers. So I'll be doing that this evening and turning this item over to Acting Mayor Flento.
We'll wait just a moment for Mayor Roberts to leave the room. For the record, Mayor Roberts has left the room, and so with interim use permit cannabis retail, 955 Broadway Avenue West, Abby.
Chair, if you can give me a minute to adjust my display settings. Don't even, Go ahead, yeah. Thank you, Acting Mayor Valento, members of the council. Tonight for your consideration is an interim use permit request from Lavender Dahlia LLC, who has requested permission for a cannabis retail shop to be located at 955 West Broadway Avenue. That is in that highway business district that we were just talking about. The use permit is specific for cannabis retail sales. As a reminder, when we developed our ordinance, we separated the types of cannabis-based businesses out and which would be permissible in which districts. So the retail sales component tonight that you're considering wouldn't allow for some of the other things like cultivation and manufacturing. Tonight you have to hold up, do we have to hold a public hearing? I think we said hold a hearing, but I don't believe you have to hold a hearing tonight. I know you don't have to hold a hearing tonight. The Planning Commission held one. So purpose of an IUP is a temporary use permit. There is an expiration. Conditional use permits run with the land forever or until we revoke them. Temporary, we set a time period for our cannabis-based businesses. We have a duration of 5 years. Should you choose to approve this tonight, the duration would end August 24th, 2031. So 955 Broadway is an existing retail building that would be proposed to be modified to the parking area. Some existing drive-through would be removed, some site improvements overall. The hours would be consistent with the city code of 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday to Saturday and 11 to 6 on Sunday. And it meets the intent of the B2 district. So we were just talking about our buffer distances. So here is our 500-foot buffer from that Parkland that we talked about. Even if we took that down, that property line, we're still not touching that park. We do have a little, get my pointer on for you folks so you can see what I see. If we took this line down of the park, all that would do is extend that buffer. It's not within the 500 feet of the buffer of the park, but we do have a 500-foot buffer right here from this property. That is RISE. RISE is a company or an organization that serves adults with disabilities and puts them to work within our community. They don't have any programming or services or care facilities here. So even though it is getting tripped up, it's not the same licensing that we're looking for when we're talking about our care living facilities. Police have taken a look. Building permits are, pretty standard. There were no comments from our engineers, fires, public works. There are no watershed rules triggered. Outdoor mitigation and signage are going to be required and would need to follow city codes. So staff did work through the findings of fact with the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission did hear this at their last meeting. They are recommending, both staff and the Planning Commission are recommending conditions of approval that do identify odor control is verified. Signage is reviewed through the permitting process, the compliance with state and cannabis, city and state cannabis regulations, because a reminder, this is just one stop in a long process. Annual new renew and registration, and then that final licensing type and use must meet all codes before everything is finalized. So the recommendation tonight is to approve resolution 08242606, and there is a draft motion on the council's screens for your review. Applicant Lavender Dahlia is here if you have questions for him. Do you have any for me?
Comments or questions? Would council like to hear from the applicant?
Sure.
Good evening, council members, acting mayor. My name is Brian Gould. I am here on behalf of Lavender Dahlia. I am the architect that's part of the development team. So I'm here to answer any questions you may have on the zoning.
I mean, I think it looks pretty straightforward.
19 conditions of approval.
We appreciate you being here all night, but we don't have any questions.
I flew here too, so.
One clarifying question I had, Abby. As we were just mentioning for the, not the last item, but the item before, we have a cap on how many cannabis stores we have in Forest Lake, and how many IUPs have we approved? And I know in the packet it said we'd continue working through regardless of how many IUPs
Yeah.
we've approved, but can you clarify that number?
This will be the 4th IUP. And remember, IUPs are conditional, then they need to go to the state, work through their state licensing, they need to work through their building permitting, come back, get their city registration, get their, did they do that in the right order, Jolene?
You did, you got it.
City registration before getting their final permit approval from this, or registration from the state, and then getting their licenses finalized. So we will allow as a limited number of IUPs, but we have a maximum number of licenses. This would be our 4th IUP. It does make it a little tricky, right? Because we've only issued 1 license within the city.
Just quick clarification, acting mayor and council members. So we register here. We've
That's right.
issued 1 registration.
Thank you.
We know that there is one other business who has pinged administration staff several times to move forward their registration. However, they have not completed, they've not submitted a building permit application. They've not finalized any building plans, to my knowledge, quite yet. So they've been told that they need to work through those processes first before we can move forward with their registration. So right now we have 1 registration, 2 available.
Thank you. Yes, license, registration, not licensing. It does make it a little tricky, but at any one point, any one of those businesses that do have a registration or a state approval could not tomorrow, right? And so there are those other IUPs that could come in and assume, move forward with their registration.
Well, I think at least one of those previously approved IUPs has done nothing with it, so.
Correct.
Thanks. Any other comments or questions? If not, looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 0824-2606, approving the interim use permit for cannabis retail sales at 955 West Broadway Avenue, subject to the 19 conditions of approval contained therein, include any amendments approved by the city council.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Then we can take a short pause and bring the mayor back in.
Good luck.
Thank you. Do you guys happen to know when the next meeting will be, or the next approval process, date-wise?
What was that?
I'm sorry, do you happen to know a date of when the next, process will be, the next approval process?
You are done with the city. You'll need to then move forward with your state.
Oh, perfect, okay.
Processes, building permitting, those sorts of things before coming back for registration.
All right, perfect, thank you. Appreciate it, thank you.
Good night.
All right, we'll move on to 8H, designated parking requests. Dave.
Mayor and council received requests from the law office at 92 Lake Street South, asking for designated parking stalls directly in front of their building on Lake Street. Their primary concern was in the winter months and access for elderly clients, especially with increased parking demand anticipated for Ace Hardware when that gets built down there. As noted in the report, the property already has its own parking lot in the back, and there are multiple public parking spots in front of the building today. MnDOT has confirmed with the city that while Lake Street is under state jurisdiction, we can regulate the parking, but they would have to approve that. So we can make decisions and allow this type of parking, but then they would have to authorize that decision. Report listed a number of pros and cons, but staff believes the key consideration here is less about the individual request, but more about the precedent that it's going to set. Granting a business-specific stall could lead to a similar request along Lake Street potentially include reducing public areas and accesses, and then creating equity concerns of preferential treatment. I provided you with a number of different options at the bottom of the memo, just looking for some discussion and direction.
Council.
Well, I'm not really in favor of this, especially since the people involved are inquiring about having this out in the wintertime. Seems to be more along their directed area of concern. I think with the plowing of the highway, the berms of the snow creates more of a problem, and the ability to be able to clear that area if they do park there. They are allowed to park there on a regular basis to park their vehicle. However, they already have 16 parking stalls, and that one of them is already a handicap. If they are concerned about handicap parking, maybe they can add another stall to their parking lot regarding that problem. Or if they wanted to do some type of temporary thing with a temporary parking sign out there or something, if they know they have a client coming that has additional needs or accessibility issues. But I find that, again, with Mr. Adams saying that we're kind of setting ourselves up for precedence with other businesses in the area, I think sends a message. And also to the high traffic volume area of that area of Highway 61 or Lake Street.
Right. Any other thoughts or?
Yeah, I'm not in favor of it. I mean, the downtown is already underparked, and, you know, the fact that they have their own parking lot in the back, I guess it'd be a little surprising if that's not able to, you know, meet their needs. But, you know, couple that with a new retail store opening right across the street. Well, there may be times when clients for either store or any of the stores in that area may have to walk a little bit further. That's been our goal these last umpteen years of making downtown more walkable. You know, Public Works does a fantastic job of getting those berms out after the state comes through and cleans. And so I would direct, I think, option number 3, decline the request and maintain all on-street parking on Lake Street as public parking.
Yeah, I think I agree as well. If you're handicapped, not knowing what that handicap is necessarily, but it just seems so much more dangerous for anybody that needs a little extra time or a little extra space to move around, that being on Highway 61 there, Lake Street would just be a bad thing for them. I agree with the other council members.
I'm in agreement as well.
All right, anyone willing to make a motion?
Make a motion that we decline the request and maintain all on-street parking on Lake Street as public parking.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 1 abstention. Right. 9 discussion items. 9A, street sign request policy. Dave.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, this is kind of an offshoot of this previous agenda item. If that were to get approved, then typically we go through some type of a vetting process of where the signs go, how high off the ground they get, and all that type of stuff. The issue is we don't really have a formalized policy. We usually follow the same steps. If a stop sign request comes in or a no parking sign comes in, it gets evaluated in the same steps. But right now we don't have an actual written down policy that kind of keeps that transparent and has a resident kind of expect what's coming next when they do make a request. Interestingly enough, we did get a stop sign request in between the designated parking and now, so that's just a good example. We don't get a lot of them, but it'd just be nice to be able to give this resident, here's our policy, here's a form you fill up, and then here's all the steps that follow through. Like I said, it's nothing that we don't do any differently than we do now. It's just not written out, and it's, a policy is good to have up on the website and a form that would be consistent every time there's a request. I tried to cover every single ask about what kind of sign it would be. That's why it gets a little lengthy, but instead of having a stop sign request form and then a street sign form and then a no parking form and all those different forms you can kind of guess of, just to kind of get it all into one with one request form. So that's why it is a lot, but instead of having 6 individual and trying to figure out which policy to give them, just to kind of keep it all in one. So really what I'm looking for is, if you've looked through it, any initial feedback, but the goal would be to bring that back to next month's council meeting for adoption, and then roll that out with that first request and have that resident go through that process.
I think this is really well thought out and covers all the bases. One question I would have is this sort of form on our website, in the sense that it can actually be filled out? Do we have that capability so they'll just fill this out on the website and it'll be submitted immediately versus a print? And
You have to ask Julian.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, yes, we can certainly build out a form that replicates what this fillable PDF looks like, so then the form would automatically filter through to Public Works staff for review and consideration.
yeah, that'd be the one thing I'd make sure to do.
I think it looks good. The one comment I have is spelling. There was on page of the packet 348, I think it's page 2. In the second bullet point, it says location of the requested SIG, so it just needs an N. Oh, besides that, it looks good.
You can never accuse Councilmember Valento of not looking through her packet.
That is thorough. That is good.
All right, anyone want to make a motion?
Do we need a motion, or is this a
Or-
discussion?
Oh, it's discussion, I'm sorry, yes. Motion to come in the future. So I think, yeah, I would agree. I think it looks great. A lot of work, time, and thought went into this. I appreciate that, and it's just nice to have this policy in place. And
So overall, add the N and then bring that back. Yep. Thank you.
all right, we will go into staff updates. And Ryan?
Mayor, City Council, Dave actually did that as a test, and he even called out who would bring that misspelling up, so. So some public engagement communication has been sent out with Eureka Avenue. Just want to touch base with you guys if you have any questions about schedule going on, why now, why does this take so long, kind of stuff like that, so.
If you would, I think, I've received some feedback on that, and, it isn't
Okay.
too hard to go on social media and take a look. That
All right, here we go.
There's some questions. And some-
We'll go back a little bit. Highway 97 project, that was supposed to be a 24-25 construction project. That got delayed, so that's why that's a 25-26 project, right? County Road 32, or 11th Avenue, was supposed to be a 26 project too. That got pushed to 27, and then it got where we're at now to fit with all the other projects that are going on in the area, including the Highway 8. They pushed that to 28. And we also have an ability to seek some additional funding for that project too. Eureka Avenue was planned for 26. Obviously that didn't work out with the weather, and when we finally got the DNR easements, that's why that's got now being pushed to 27. But why do we gotta do with the work we gotta do now? So there's 3 stages for the surcharge placement. Each stage has 3 lifts, okay? And after you're done with stage 1, it needs to sit for 2 weeks so they can monitor it, to measure the settlement. But the early parts of these stages have to be done on non-frozen ground. So that's why that work has to get going now, so we don't get in the same situation that we did and had to shut the project down. If we don't get the surcharge placed, that potentially would have to sit there for 9 months to get the consolidation that we need. You're then now in 28 project, and now our funding's not available anymore, right? So that's why now, why, who, what, and when, and where, why, to answer all those questions. Obviously, it's not gonna be a full closure while they do this work. The days that they're gonna start out there Monday with a lot of erosion control placements and some fence removal. But when they do get into the placement of the surcharge, that's where they'll have those temporary road closures to complete that work, just because of the big trucks and equipment that are gonna be coming in and out of there. So that's just a little more background when you lay it out, like, oh yeah, now that makes sense, why we gotta come in and do what we gotta do for the surcharge now. So once it's placed, it's gonna sit there throughout the entire winter and into the spring.
When you say temporary closings, like just for the day or a couple hours, or what's temporary?
For the time that they're hauling material in there and getting that work done, right? So if they got, they could possibly, I mean, by working hours, they could be a 7 to 7 one day, right? But if they, they can do those long durations, that's just less shutdowns that are gonna occur.
But it would open up in the evening?
Yep, we would open it up each evening, and through the weekends, or when they're not working, it would be open until we get to that end, if we do decide ultimately we're gonna close the road for the winter. But we're kinda also monitoring the Highway 7, or 97 construction, right? Can't see much going on unless you walk into there right now, but there's still about 3 weeks left of concrete work. That's a lot of concrete, right? So, curb, medians, pathways, truck aprons in the roundabout. So once that gets done, then, then you can start paving. And I can't remember how many lifts offhand, but at least 3 out there. And then the restoration, striping, signage, and stuff like that. So all the utility work's done. So hopefully things can move a little faster. Weather is looking very favorable, but so that's kind of what we all kind of got going on in that Highway 97 and Eureka Avenue area, and why.
So, just to clarify, when does this have to be done before we're risk of losing that funding? End of 20, like, there's
28, if we go past 28, but we want to get the work done that we have laid out with the schedule in 27 because of the deep trenches that, we're going to come through there and reconstruct that, right? 99.9999% of the time when we do a full recon like that, we want it to sit through one winter to go through a freeze thaw before we come back and pave the final workhorse in 28. Because in case if there are some settlements, we want to be able to take care of those before the final workhorse is down. We haven't done a full recon since 15th Street Southwest.
That's good information. That's when you see it on social media, and then it's easy to question that. 'Cause
I shouldn't have looked at that, because then I didn't sleep all the rest of the weekend. I'm like, dang it. So that's why I was ready to talk about it.
Yeah, no, that's good, because that helps. I mean, when people reach out to us, we have some facts behind it, and so appreciate that. Anything else?
Oh, thanks.
Amanda?
No updates.
Abby?
Community development staff was at Arts in the Park last week for the 3rd time this summer, looking at public's input on the potential removal of the boat launch or expanded parkland space. That was direction asked by the Parks Commission. So we'll be tallying that information with survey data coming in through the end of the summer here, and bringing that back to the Parks Commission to get some recommendations from them to move forward with some of the capital investment projects that Public Works has been planning for Lakeside. Predominantly the shoreline restoration project needs to get moving forward. Lots of continued development interest. I know that we start seeing leaves falling, but that doesn't mean that development's gonna slow down at all. We continue to see people coming in thinking that they're gonna want to build everything this year. It's starting to get a little bit challenging, and everybody's fighting the weather. So some things get a little bit longer in our review process because we are pretty inundated with permitting right now. We do have permits in for some minor addition at Walmart and at Quick Trip, so just know that there's some small things going on in some of our commercial properties. I did receive an inquiry today for one of our, I would call it a national chain in the city that's in a smaller tenant space, moving now potentially into a larger tenant space. So that's even nice to see that you kind of have some things moving around, businesses expanding. And then lastly, we have a new building inspector starting on Monday. So.
Thank you. Dave?
Just one update. Corn feed is tomorrow night for the Arts in the Park. I confirmed with Cal, he has a bunch of volunteers, but he said any one of you are welcome to come and shuck a few dozen or 100 cobs of corn. So should be a nice weather, it looks like, so that'd be a good ending of the Arts in the Park season.
Chief Hanegraaff.
Church of Cash.
Thank you. Last Wednesday, we had our 9th annual FLA Community Night where the Forest Lake Fire Department and Police Department create a softball team and take on the traveling coaches. We had great weather, great turnout. It's a lot of fun to get everybody out there, not in uniform, be in the community. So that event went off without a hitch and it was really nice. And then I just wanted to mention, in our hiring recommendations in the consent agenda, we're hiring our first CSO out of our program. And that was what one of the major components of building that program was, is to transition these young folks that are coming through school. Now we'll have another one next year that will be ready. Both individuals that are our first initial ones have nothing but positive things that they want to work for the Forest Lake Police Department. So that program objectives are doing very well.
Most importantly, who won?
FLA won this year.
Okay.
It's been a couple of years, but it was good to see it was competitive.
Yeah.
So we just about ran out of light, so it
Yeah.
was good.
Thanks. Chief Newman.
No updates.
Amanda, anything? Jolene?
Our city's budget survey is live, so encourage folks to get out there and participate in that. There's links on our website, links on social media. There'll be information going out on the next utility bill about that. We're gonna have a little bit of a lull here between tonight and our next council meeting because Labor Day is upon us, and just the way the calendar's shaken out, our first meeting won't be until September 14th. City offices will be closed on September 7th in honor and observance of Labor Day. And then just want to point out that we have some great employment opportunities posted on our website. We have a police administrative assistant position for Chief Hanegraaff's team. And then starting tomorrow, we have a community development assistant position. So encourage folks to get out there and check out those opportunities and come join our team.
Thank you. Councilmember Miller.
No updates.
Councilmember Valento.
No updates.
Councilmember Erickson.
No updates.
Councilmember Larson.
Planning Commission meeting Wednesday, 6 o'clock. If you can make it, please show up.
All right. I don't have anything either, so with no other business coming for us, we are adjourned tonight.